Welcome everyone to the Sutta class. So we are all going to take a closer look at one of the discourses of the Buddha. So I think before we start our Sutta class, we should take a moment to pay our gratitude and tribute to Bhante Punnaji, who started the Sutta class. Am I right? Yeah. So he started this tradition. Let us take a minute to be grateful and pay our respect and tribute and gratitude to Bhante Punnaji Mahathera, who guided us and who showed us so many suttas and helped us to open our eyes to the original teachings of the Buddha. Thank you. Okay, so we will study this sutta. Of course, it will be difficult to pronounce. Karajakā. You can divide the term into two words, so you can read it. Karajakā. You know, as kaya is the body, as in Satipatthana Sutta, Kāyānupassana, kaya is the body. And so Karajakā, and then also there's another name for this sutta called Brahma Vihara Sutta. And so right now, in front of us, we have this piece of paper, so it's very convenient we can read this sutta. But I think it will be really appropriate if you can really think a little bit about how did you get this sutta to these papers? For how many centuries? What we have in front of now is a teaching given by the Buddha in the 6th century BCE. That means 26 centuries. So think about the journey of this sutta for more than 26 centuries. What kind of journey this sutta might have gone through to come to us, to in front of us in this paper. So we really have to be so grateful to all the generations of disciples of the Buddha through these 26 centuries for preserving this teaching and making sure that this teaching is available for the next generation. Each generation of Buddhists took care of this teaching, and this was the most precious thing for Buddhist generations. And so they made sure that they preserve these teachings. And then there were so many techniques they used to bring this teaching from generation to generation. So it is very convenient. Now, of course, we have photocopy paper, very easily available. But this was a result of so much hard work, so much dedication, so much sacrifices of so many generations of disciples of the Buddha. So we really have to pay attention to that fact. Remember, these sutta, these discourses of the Buddha, were preserved, were first collected within the first 3 months after Buddha passed away. Buddha had been giving teachings, sermons, and training, training different parts of northern India. And then there was some text, what you call text, not in the sense of the book, but the text. Decided, finalized selection of verses and statements called text. There was a certain oral text that were already been finalized even at the time of the Buddha as a way of reflection, recitation, as a way of studying. And one such text is Dhammapada. and other is Sutta Nipata, because within the sutta itself we find references to them. And then there were some texts that monks actually used as a tool for studies. When the new monks come, there were a certain series of verses that were taught to these new monks even at the time of the Buddha. So they have already kind of a tradition to slowly develop this, what you call a text. But this, the basket of discourses that we know today was a result of convention or council happened within the first 3 months of the Buddha's lifetime. I know that people who have attended the Sutta class earlier may know these details, but since I gather that there will be new people also, we need to have that deep appreciation for the Sutta actually. And then, as you know, that the whole first council was a very systematic gathering of discourses of the Buddha and reconfirmation with the prominent disciples of the Buddha. I may not go into details of how exactly the first council happened, but there are records, how this first council was happened and how different important discourses of the Buddha were put together and then organized them as long discourses, short discourses, middle-length discourses, and how different groups of monks were assigned to preserve these discourses. Within the first council itself, different groups of monks were assigned to preserve and then pass that text to the next generation. So we have a generation of reciters. And the texts were actually oral. And that was the tradition of the time. Because text is not simply a script, but actually the text is a teaching and also a way to recite them. So not only the Buddhists, but also other religious groups at the time of the Buddha, including Jains and also even Brahmins, and they all passed their texts, their teaching to the next generation or through oral tradition. Because during that time, they believed that the oral transmission is the most trustworthy transmission. And in fact, before the Western culture came into prominence, and oral tradition was common in many cultures. And like if you think about early generations in this area, this part of the world, even like Native Americans and any Aboriginals societies, they pass their important teachings through oral tradition. And only after the Western culture start to come to the other parts of the world, we kind of move from oral text to written text. The written text is all like a 2-dimensional picture, but oral text is like a 3-dimensional picture. Because when you write something, you don't know really how to. You can read it in different ways. You can stop in different times. There are so much missing in a written text. How to recite it, where to stop, where to emphasize, and though all these details are not it's like a song in a text. So at the time of the Buddha, they believed that all religious groups believe that oral text is the most trustworthy way to transmit, and particularly in that transmission happens from person to person, from teacher to disciple, from heart to heart transmission. The text is an impersonal transmission. There's no teaching involved, there's no person involved. So oral text is from heart to heart transmission. You learn not only the text, how to recite it, what to emphasize, all kind of other details. So that was oral tradition. And so the different groups of monks were assigned to recite them, and then we find in the history and even in inscriptions that there are groups of monks who are called reciters. So actually, there were different monasteries which will recite one particular text. So if you want to study that text, you have to go and meet the monks who are reciting that text. And so there are different monasteries which are expert in particular text. And the tradition was actually twice a week, once in 2 weeks, every 14 days. These monks will get together and rehearsed. That is how they kept the memory. Every 2 weeks they had to recite it as a group. So even one individual may kind of forget one part of it. When you recite in a group, you will get it, right? Like when you dance in a group, you may forget one step, but when you dance in a group, you will pick it up and you will learn it again, right? So in that way, the tradition was to recite these texts every 2 weeks. So the texts were actually monks. They were not like impersonal, papers. They were monks. So the one monk, the group of monks can carry the whole text. Of course, even in that tradition is maintained to some extent even today. For example, as monks, we have to recite the text. And one of the requirements for us to get high ordination is to memorize the whole Dhammapada. 423 verses. So that's one requirement we have to memorize. And in the ordination ceremony, they will simply ask one of these stanzas we have to recite. In front of all the the council of monks and other. If you cannot recite, that's so embarrassing. So we really have to memorize the whole Dhammapada. So if you meet any monk who are high ordained, they can recite from any part, or some may have forgotten some, but that's one requirement. So in that way, those days, Majjhima Nikaya was a monk, a group of monks. If you want to learn Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length discourses, you have to go to that group of monks and monasteries. So that tradition continues for centuries and centuries and centuries. And even when the Arahant Mahinda came to Sri Lanka, and he brought, not only him, he brought 5 monks and other monks, and then also invited, monks later also. And they are not simply monks, they are texts. They were texts. They have the text in themselves. And that is how the oral tradition was passed to Sri Lanka. And if you go to ancient monasteries, if you read the inscriptions, we find that some, like when the kings give different donations to monasteries, and and there are the name mentions that I give these donations to the reciters of Dhammapada. I give these gifts to reciters of Digha Nikaya. So we have historical evidence that there were generations of monks who are reciting, called reciters or bhanaka. But that whole oral tradition changed in the 1st century of the Common Era. By that time, 500 years has been passed. And one main reason was actually, but remember that even though this oral tradition is going by, that doesn't mean that there were no writing skills. The written technique was already developed, but they didn't put into writing, because that was, for them, it's like minimizing the whole picture, two-dimensional, thing. But there were other texts were written, but not the canon. But in the 1st century, particularly in Sri Lanka, there was a very long drought. No rain for many, it says actually for 11 years there were no rain. And so such a difficult time, and many people died, and some people left to India and other countries, and even monks. Some were leaving, and some were passing away. And as Buddhists, the most precious thing for Buddhists was the teachings of the Buddha, these discourses. Because if you lose them, you have to wait for another Buddha to appear. How many eons? For this was the most precious thing for Buddhists. That is why we have to be so grateful that they preserve this as the most precious thing for them. So nowadays it's so easy. We can print a book and put it in the bookshelf, and we don't have to worry about that. But that was not the case for them those days. And during this famine, and they had a real concern about these teachings, and so some monks were even passing away. And also some monks didn't have enough to eat, not only for monks, for all people have, real difficult time, and they were even eating whatever leaves that were left in that 11-year-long drought. And there are, some reports actually, because we had to recite this every 2 weeks in order to keep the memory. But since some monks were not really strong enough to even to stand up and come together, and there are one incident actually, all the monks in the monastery got together, but they are not ready to forget the memory and give this up, and they were waiting. One day the rain will come and we will recover. And they were so weak, and they got together, and they cannot really stand up, but they came around a heap of sand, and they put their, lean themselves that heap of sand and put in their heads, and then they somehow come together. They cannot even recite loud, but they come together close to enough each other, even they murmur, they can hear themselves. They even recited this sutta even at that time, because they don't want to lose this, and this is the most precious thing. And after the end of that famine, of course, rain came, and slowly, things coming back, and there was a big discussion among the monks. What if all the monks who remembered Dhammapada happened to pass away? That text is lost, right, and never to recover. So there was a big discussion about this oral tradition, and by that time, writing technology was well developed. And there are arguments. The suggestion not to put into text and to put into text, and there were for some time there was a discussion. But finally, the group of monks who really persisted that we need to put this into writing finally convinced the other monks, and then they decided to bring all the monks who memorized all this text, and one by one, put everything into the palm leaves. So there's a whole technology how the palm leaves were prepared to write those texts. That's a different story. So then, for the first time in the first century, actually in the Common Era, year 89, the oral texts were started to put down into palm leaves. If you visit Sri Lanka, there's a place, where, are you going in this pilgrimage there? Alavihara, yeah. Is the one destination in this trip? Oh, okay. If you join Brother Leslie this August, you'll be able to go to that place where the oral texts were put down into palm leaves in Sri Lanka. So then, of course, then we start the written text, but then again, producing palm leaves text was also not easy. It requires so much, time and preservation. But fortunately, they had a technique to preserve the palm leaf through herbs and through different kind of oils. So we can actually keep it for nearly 100 years and even more than 100 years. And then there were reproduction of palm leaves in every century, rewriting, producing, reproducing, until the British came to Sri Lanka, and also the new printing technology. Actually, this print culture is quite new in the human history, but then in late 19th century, and these texts were also slowly put into the papers and books. But before that, they were also put into papers in Korea. In Korea, still we can find there's a library with all these sutras, but it is in a wooden block library. Not like we have today, the books, library for the books, but in Korea, what they had was the wooden blocks. So if you want to read the sutta, you go there and you get a blank paper and put that blocks and get your own print and come and read. So that was the library in Korea. So we have to remember that, this sutta that has come to in front of us has a long journey. And this has come to us as a result of dedication, sacrifices of so many monks and so many disciples of the Buddha. After centuries after centuries, they have given such a care and attention, and they have sacrificed a lot to keep this teaching alive for us. So when we read them, we really have to have that gratitude for all this generation. So we can actually read, and we have an access to the great knowledge of the Buddha, the great wisdom of the Buddha, and so we have to be so grateful to all these previous generations. Okay. So with that understanding, let us now come to our sutta. And this particular sutta is found in the collection called Anguttara Nikaya. There is a numerical discourses of the Buddha. In the first council, when all the discourses was collected and they were divided and organized into different categories. And one category was the suttas that talks about numbers, and we call them numerical discourses. And this particular sutta discourse is found in that collection called Anguttara Nikaya, numerical discourses, in the section 10. And I use the translation by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi. And this particular sutta is actually giving us a very good idea about the Buddha's teaching on karma. So, as I mentioned earlier, these suttas are really opening doors for us to, really know the great wisdom of the Buddha. And so, the whole teaching of karma is so popularized, and many people are very familiar with the karma now. And then the very term karma itself has become a worldwide, universal term. So now you have a credit karma. Like that is your credit score. It's called credit karma. But we also have so many misunderstandings about karma. So this particular reason that I selected this sutta is that we can have a more deeper, more closer, better understanding of the karma, particularly to remove some of our misconceptions. And this sutta actually explains particularly the flexibility of the karma. And usually when you heard the karma, you have this idea of a fate. Oh, it's a bad karma, it's my karma, nothing to do, right? So yeah, that is one version of karma, but not the Buddhist version of the karma. Buddhist version of karma is more flexible. And it's not like something like a fate or destiny that we cannot do anything about. A Buddhist idea is that actually whatever the karma is not only the past karma. Karma includes also the present karma that we can do. And so our karma is not done yet. It's fully open. And we can still do new karma no matter what we have done. Our karma is not end. It's not done. We can also do new karma. But even with regard to past karma, there are so many things that we can do right now to change the influence of the past karma also. This particular sutta is showing us that what we can do to mitigate the past karma and how flexible that those karmas are connotations of the Buddha. Okay, with that background, let us now read. Let us read the first paragraph together, and then we will go into the details. Bhikkhus, I do not say that there is termination of volitional karma that has been done and accumulated so long as one has not experienced its results, that they may be in this very life, or in the next rebirth, or in some subsequent occasions. But I do not say that there's a making an end of suffering as long as one has not experienced the result of volitional karma that has been done and accumulated. Okay, let us try to understand that whole statement. There are two paragraphs here, the first two sentences here. The first sentence is saying that the Buddha said that I do not say that there can be an end of karma. There can be like termination, or there can be wiping out of karma that has been done and accumulated if we have not experienced them in some way. So like, let's say there's no end of karma without experiencing them. So that's like simple, there's no end of karma without experiencing them. But then Buddha explains that there are not only one way to experience them, there are at least three different ways that those karma can be experienced. One is in this very life. The second one is in the next rebirth. And the third one is in subsequent births. So generally, the karma can be, let's say past karma. Past karma can be experienced, whatever karma that we are even doing, karma can be experienced right in this life. Some karma can be experienced immediate next life because they can be so forceful. And then some karma can be experienced in subsequent life. And so that's the first statement. And then again Buddha said that, but I do not say that there is making an end of suffering. So there Buddha does discuss about not only the end of karma, but end of suffering. What is the end of suffering? Nibbana, enlightenment, yes. I do not say that there's making an end of suffering as long as one has not experienced the result of volitional karma that has been done and accumulated. Okay? So in that way, it may sound like this. Outwardly, it sounds like that. You cannot attain nirvana, you cannot attain liberation unless you have experienced all the karma that you have done. That is how it sounds like. But that is not. Okay, that's one difference actually. For example, in the teachings of Jainism, Jain religion, they also have notion of karma. And then for them actually karma is literally physical thing. Like whenever you perform any karma, any action, volitional or not, any action that you perform produced substances of karma, which they really interpret as quite literally physical, that can cloud, that can cover what they call soul, the Atman. And in order to liberate your soul, you have to get rid of these layers and layers and layers of karma. So really have to burn them by experiencing them. That is why they prefer to have what we call self-mortification, like purposefully doing all kind of difficult practices as a way of burning out those karma. So without burning all the karmas away, there's no liberation according to their system of teaching. So that is why they have those practices that they are doing. But the Buddhist notion of karma is different. And one difference is that not all of our actions are not karma. Only the actions that are willed, that are volitional, only the actions that you have volitionally done. Only the actions that you have purposefully, volitionally, volitionally with involvement of your volition is done. Those actions will only become karma. So not all actions are not karma. Action plus volition equals karma, if you want to have a formula. Right? Action plus volition equals karma. Action without volition is no karma. So only volitional actions are karma. And in this discourse actually, Buddha purposefully used the term volitional. And this is not only translation actually. Here Buddha used the term sanchetanika, like a chetanika, like with volition. So he purposefully used that term also here. So only volitional actions are going to be karma. And then on the other hand, in order to achieve liberation, you may not have to experience like all the retributions of the karma. But if that is the case, if we have to go through the retribution of all the karma that we have done in order to attain liberation, and then the case of Angulimala, it can be controversy, right? It can be something that cannot happen. Angulimala became an arahant, liberated. Did he went through all the retribution of his karma? Then, if he really had to go through retribution, he may have to be born in more than 1,000 times to be killed at the young age, right? Because he has killed so many people. But Buddha is saying that here, but don't take it lightly. In the first sentence, Buddha is saying that I do not say that there's termination of volitional karma that has been done and accumulated so long as one has not experienced them. Don't think that you can easily get away from them. Then how you can get away? And the second sentence, that even liberation cannot be achieved unless we have not experienced. Here actually we have to get the meaning that if we haven't purified our karma, if we haven't purified, or let's say nullified our karma. So what Buddha is telling here is that really whatever karma that we have done has a potential to give result. But the results are not deterministic. They can be experienced right in this life, they can be experienced next life, they can be experienced subsequent life. But the results, the repercussions or retributions of the karma is not fixed. It's not fixed. And achievement of liberation, also called sometimes karma kaya, the destruction of the karma. But the destruction of the karma doesn't mean that we have to go through all the retribution of the karma. But the destruction of the karma means that we destroy, maybe we overcome the very potential of generating the karma. And you will understand when you go through this, how we can actually purify our karma without necessarily going through the repercussions of them. Okay, let us say you got understand the first sentence, right? Okay, so let's go to the next one. This noble disciple, bhikkhus, who is thus devoid of longing and devoid of ill will, unconfused, clearly comprehending, ever mindful, dwells, pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise, the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. Thus, above, below, across, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he dwells, pervading the entire world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, vast, exalted, measureless, without enmity, without ill will. He understands thus: previously, my mind was limited and undeveloped, but now it is measureless and well developed. No measurable karma remains or persists there. Oh, okay, now you are getting a new picture here. So the disciples of the Buddha who understand the real working of the karma and start a practice, and thus devoid of longing and devoid of ill will, confused. Usually, actually, before even we becoming this kind of like mindful, unconfused, that kind of mind, actually, whoever who want to come to this level of mindset has to behave morally before. So, for any disciple to become devoid of longing, devoid of ill will and unconfused, you had to have moral life. It is not mentioned here, but it's implied here, because there are other suttas in the same section where Buddha described the same thing, but in those discourses he specifically mentioned the 10 unwholesome deeds and 10 wholesome deeds. And once you establish yourself in the 10 wholesome deeds, and then you can come to this level of mindset. And once you come to that kind of mindset, and what Buddha is describing here, the importance of loving kindness. Importance of loving kindness. And he explains how one can develop loving kindness in this way. And then, once you develop loving kindness, not to the simple level, but pervading the entire world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, vast, exalted, measureless, without enmity, without ill will. This is not a normal loving kindness. This is well developed, well trained, frequently practiced, very higher level of loving kindness. When you develop loving kindness that level, then he realizes, he get a realization that previously, like before you practice loving kindness, before you establish yourself in the moral behavior, when you were doing all the bad karma those days, previously, mind was limited, undeveloped. Actually, the limited means actually mind was narrow, small, undeveloped. But now, as a result of moral behavior and loving kindness, now my mind is expanded, measureless, because loving kindness itself is a measureless mental state. When you really develop that state and your mind is like going beyond the limits, going beyond the boundaries, and it's really becoming, limitless mind. And such a well-developed mind, now, whatever our karma we perform are measurable karma. Because karma is always focused on one thing and limited. It's focusing on a particular incident, and the volition underlying the karma is focused on one volition. And so all the karmas that we have done are measurable karmas. But when you develop your mind to immeasurable, develop vast state, the measurable karma, the no measurable karma remains or persists there. Oh, Buddha is teaching us a different way of burning the karma. Not necessarily experience the retribution, but actually transforming our mind to the extent that the measurable karma cannot remain there anymore. Okay. In order to understand this whole concept, there's another interesting sutta. Let me write down the title of the sutta. There's another interesting sutta called Lonapala Sutta. Yeah, okay. In this discourse, actually, Buddha is giving a very interesting example. A salt crystal. I mean, you are familiar with the salt crystal, right? So in this discourse, the Lona means salt. Buddha is addressing monks, and he's teaching about the karma. And he asks a question from the monks. He gets a small cup, actually a small vessel, like a cup. And then he asks, if you put a salt crystal to this cup, this small vessel with water, what's going to happen to the water? Yeah, monk says, get it salty. And Buddha asks, can you drink this? He said, no, undrinkable. Then Buddha again asks, what if you put the same salt crystal to a river? Will it make a difference? Will that salt crystal make the water in the river salty? Undrinkable? Monk said no. And Buddha asked, why is the reason? Why is it not making salty? Because the monk answers, too much water. When there's too much water, the small salt cannot make a big difference. Oh, then Buddha said that exactly in the same way, when your mind is narrow, and Buddha used three terms, when you have undeveloped body, and when we have undeveloped virtues, and when we have undeveloped undeveloped mind and undeveloped wisdom, four things. When we have undeveloped body, undeveloped virtues, undeveloped mind, undeveloped wisdom, which means you have a narrow mind. When you have a narrow mind, whatever karma that you have done can make a big influence to your life. It can bring so much, bad consequences to you. It can bring so much suffering to you because your mind is small, it's so narrow, it's undeveloped. And Buddha is saying that just like that same salt crystal cannot make a big, significant difference. It just makes some difference in the river, of course, not significant, but some difference it's making. But just like the same salt crystal cannot make a significant difference in the river, if you can make your mind not a cup, but a river, if you can make your mind not like limited this kind of water, but actually make it unmeasurable, expanded through loving kindness and all other practices. And what's going to happen? The whatever salt, whatever karma that you have in your life, going to be less significant. So in a way, actually, the Buddha is kind of guiding us to what we call dilute your karma by expanding your mind through loving kindness. So the best way to mitigate our karma, the past bad karma, is the loving kindness. Not only loving kindness, actually all four Brahma Viharas. This is a very important teaching. We should never be afraid of whatever bad karma that if we happen to have done. The Buddha's teaching is not like fatalistic, not really like, okay, you are sure to go to hell. That's not the kind of, the enlightened teaching. And Buddha is showing that this is whole psychology, this whole, natural function. Of course, if you have done some significant moral action, wholesome or unwholesome, there's a big impact to your consciousness. It's there, it's influencing you. But the same consciousness, if we can expand it, if we can transform it, make it so much, expansive and bigger and measureless, and that whatever, that impact, whatever trace that is left in your consciousness as a result of doing that action is going to be less significant because now you have more new transformation happen here. So that's the kind of teaching Buddha is giving here. Actually, now we understand that the Buddhist teaching of karma is not that fatalistic. Even the karma that done previously, we can actually do something to mitigate the effects of them. So if you think that, you or your friends or other people are going through some difficult time, if you think that that is not the, other reason, but maybe a bad karma, the best thing they can do is to develop Brahma Viharas, develop loving kindness and other qualities. Make sure that they really transform their mind. That's the best time they can pay more attention to their spiritual qualities and keep on practicing loving kindness meditation and expand that, make that small cup bigger and bigger and bigger. If you cannot make it a river, at least make it a big basket. Right? To that extent, there will be less, less effect of the bad karma. That's the whole idea here. How liberating it is, right? Because this is the mind is working. We can change the mind. It's not a fixed thing. Okay, let us read the next paragraph. What do you think, bhikkhus, if a youth were to develop liberation of mind by loving kindness from his childhood, would he do a bad deed? I think right there we have to stop. There's an interesting term here, liberation of mind by loving kindness. That's also a technical term. Liberation of mind by loving kindness is not simply a phrase, it's a very important state. Vimutti. The C pronounced in Pali as chair, as in chair. So, Cheto Vimutti. It's a very important term. Cheto Vimutti. Cheto means, Cheta can means the mind process, and Vimutti means release or freedom, mainly release. The Cheto Vimutti is a state we can develop. There are different stages of this state. It simply means that you can develop your mind to have no more fluctuations there. And no more, let me see. This is the state that we developed in meditation also. This is close to samadhi, but you make it more enduring. So you can achieve kind of mind without any fluctuation, any fabrications, any sankhara functioning in the mind. When you can subdue your mind to the state that your habitual patterns are not activating. It's kind of serene, stilled state of the mind. And we call it Cheto Vimutti. Your mind having less, your mind becoming aloof to the influence of your habitual tendencies coming and influencing you. Less thoughts, less running of the mind, and less tendency to generate unwholesome thoughts. And when we practice a meditation on a regular basis, again and again, and of course, the more we practice meditation, we develop our mind, we experience kind of inner calmness, inner serenity, that that our thoughts or even external situation cannot really bother so much. In the beginning, it can be bothered so much, and then we can slowly develop a mind that cannot be bothered so much. Even when you see an unpleasant thing, anger is less likely to arise. And then you develop that kind of protected, safe mind. And we call it Cheto Vimutti, release of the mind. And you can do it through loving kindness. There are different ways to do that. And one way called loving kindness, that kind of release state of the mind that we generate from loving kindness is called liberation of mind by loving kindness. And you can have temporary Cheto Vimutti, that's what we experience as meditators. And you can make it permanent, and that's what we call Akuppa Cheto Vimutti. For that you need a strong wisdom to do that. So there's another technical term, I think, but I don't. We may not have time to go to that. But what I want to emphasize here, the kind of loving kindness that is explaining here is not simple loving kindness. We simply say, "May all beings be well and happy." This is a loving kindness that you meditate very often, a lot, and it becomes your second nature. And it's a kind of utterance that you will always say to yourself. Like, at this state, the whole loving kindness meditation become like a shorter meditation, simple meditation. In the beginning, when you purposely do it, we pay attention to different groups of people. We say so many terms. May everyone be free from suffering, be well, be happy, be peaceful, all kind of things. So this group of people, this group of people. But, when you develop this loving kindness to a greater level, it will be like, become very, with a simple sentence, you can generate that big loving kindness without even referring to many, many words. Eventually, it will be like a Sukhi Hotu. But with that simple word, you can actually generate such a great loving kindness as if you experience at the end of a normal loving kindness meditation. So that's simplified, but very profound, strong state of the mind. Sukhi Hotu. Maybe well and happy, well and happy. That would be your mantra. You can develop such a mind whenever you walk, just, when you see birds, be well and happy. When you see other people, be well and happy. When you see a stranger, be well and happy. When somebody smiles with you, be well and happy. When somebody frown at you, be well and happy. Right? That could be like... So I usually tell people, if you have to develop our loving kindness to the extent that one day, you hit your toe against something, and the word that coming out of your mouth should be well and happy. So that's the Ceta Vimutti. So your mind is such a state of loving kindness, the natural expression whenever something happens would be that, that expression. That's called Ceta Vimutti. So when you develop a loving kindness, that level, your mind is actually immeasurable, actually expansive and vast. So the simple bad karma that we have done cannot significantly influence us. Okay, let's continue again. What do you think, bhikkhus, if a youth were to develop liberation of mind by loving kindness from his childhood on, would he do a bad deed? The answer is no, Bhante. Could suffering affect him if he does no bad deed? No, Bhante. For on what account could suffering affect one who does not do bad deed? A woman or a man should develop this liberation of mind by loving kindness, Ceta Vimutti. A woman or man cannot take this body with him when they go. Mortals have mind as their core. Okay, that is why this is called Karajakā sutta. Here there's a mentioning to the body. Okay, so there are a few things to consider here, and one is that if a youth were to develop a liberation, this kind of mind from childhood, would he be able to do a bad deed? This is so interesting. Buddha is telling us that actually even a child can develop a Ceta Vimutti mind. Isn't that interesting? And so when children do loving kindness meditation, so we can train our children. It's entirely possible, according to the Buddha. That's why Buddha is asking this question. If someone developed this technique from childhood, from youth, will he ever be able to do a bad deed? No. And could suffering affect him? No. This is a good motivation for us to teach loving kindness to our children. And it will be easier for them to develop loving kindness because, before their mind get polluted, right? And so many issues, right? When a small child, they don't really distinguish people, they don't even, divide people based on color, based on, nation, based on race. They have no idea. Right? They will simply go to anyone with open mind. So it will be easy for them to develop loving kindness, when we have all these categories in division and discriminations, and then it's so difficult. We have to break all of them. But it will be easy for them. So they can develop such a mind too. And the second one is that, so Buddha is saying that if a man or a woman or a man should develop this liberation of mind, a woman or man cannot take this body with them when they go. Mortals have mind as their core. So, what is really meant here that this body that we have got, we have also got due to a past karma, this human birth. Of course, there are many factors have given rise to this body. Definitely our parents' genes and the food that we have eaten and our environment. But important other factor that produce this body is our karma. Choice of a human birth, human body is the karma. Choice of your parents is a karma. And the manifestation of these sense organs is a karma. So karma is a very important, cause to produce this body. So we have got this body also as a result of karma. And then we got this body as a result of past karma, and then we can do new karma using this body. Right? But although we use this body to do new karma, and we don't bring this body with us, but we bring the karma with us. How many bodies we have left? And how many karma we may have done to satisfy those bodies? Imagine that, we have done maybe so many bad karma to satisfy those bodies. But now that body is no more, but we have the karma that we have done as a result of that. So that's the idea, that you may leave this body, but whatever karma you do to satisfy this body, to give pleasure to this body, will remain with you. The mind is our core, and that will continue. Okay, let us read quickly the next part. The noble disciple understand whatever bad deed I did here in the past with this deed-born body is all to be experienced here. It will not follow alone. When the liberation of mind by loving kindness has been developed in this way, it leads to non-returning for a wise bhikkhu here who does not penetrate through fuller liberation. Okay. So as a disciple of the Buddha, we have to make a determination. And what will happen as a result of loving kindness practice is that whatever bad deed that we happen to have done previously, the effect is going to be minimal, and you are going to exhaust everything right here with this body. You are not going to bring that karma to another body. That will be the effects of the loving kindness. And the bad karma will be experienced right here, but not with the full effect because now you have developed your loving kindness. But whatever bad deed I did here in the past with this deed-born body is all to be experienced right here, not to carry into the next life. All are experienced right here to the minimum level. So you are not going to really exhaust all the karma because of loving kindness, but you are going to do is kind of mitigate the effects and make it less significant. Maybe some bad karma that that usually give really bad effect, like a death or serious injury, can become a simple accident and only little bit in wounds. And its experience right here is gone, no more left for the next life. And okay, let us continue. This noble disciple bhikkhus, who is thus devoid of longing, devoid of ill will, confused, clear comprehending, ever mindful, dwell pervading one quarter with the mind imbued with compassion. The second Brahmavihara, with the mind imbued with altruistic joy, mudita, with the mind imbued with equanimity, upekkha. Likewise, the second quarter, third quarter, the fourth quarter, thus above, below, across, and area, and to all as to himself. He dwells pervading the entire world with the mind imbued with equanimity, vast, exalted, measureless, without enmity, without ill will. He understands this. Previously, my mind was limited. He understands, but now it is measureless and well developed. No measurable karma remains and persists there. Just like the loving kindness, there is also meditation called compassion meditation, karuna meditation. There's also meditation called mudita meditation, altruistic joy, and also equanimity. Very briefly, loving kindness meditation is simple wish of well-being to everyone, general well-being, willingness for everyone to be well-being, goodwill, benevolent feeling towards everyone. Compassion is specifically focusing on people who are suffering, who are going through suffering, pains, and wishing these people to be free from pain. So compassion meditation will be thinking about people who are in hospitals, who are having so much sorrow and sadness and all kind of difficulties in their life, and making a wish. May all people who are suffering be free from their suffering. And focusing on all suffering beings and suffering people in the world and wishing them to be free from suffering, that is compassion meditation. And then thinking about all the people and beings in the world who are doing good, who are really well, who are happy, having good time, and wishing all these people to maintain that happiness, to carry on that peace, carry on that harmony, and wishing them to remain in that happiness is the mudita meditation, altruistic joy meditation. Equanimity is little advanced than that. Usually it happens after you practice all other three forms of meditation. You develop a mind, what you call equipoised mind, the mind that may not, like for one is equanimous, and then you maintain equanimity, equanimous mind towards all beings, understanding that everyone is vulnerable to experience suffering. You may not be able to completely stop their suffering just because you wish for that, understanding that, but still maintaining that equanimous mind towards all. Okay, so once we develop, now I have to quickly finish this because time is going fast. And then Buddha continue in the same way. If someone were to develop, if a child was develop this kind of loving kindness from the childhood, he will not be able to accumulate karma or bad deed or experience suffering. Let's read the last paragraph. The noble disciple understand whatever bad deed I did here in the past with this deed-born body is all to be experienced here. It will not follow along. When the liberation of my mind by equanimity has been developed in this way, it leads to non-returning of a wise bhikkhu here who does not penetrate to fuller liberation. So with loving kindness alone, you can go all the way to non-returning, means actually anagami, the third stage of enlightenment. So don't think that loving kindness is a simple practice. I think even I emphasize in our retreat, don't think that loving kindness is a children's meditation. It's a preliminary meditation. People who just do when they do not know how to meditate, or they're beginners meditation. Like vipassana is a serious one. But to practice loving kindness at this level is not really preliminary. And it's really such a meditation, according to the sutta, you can, with loving kindness itself, you can transform your mind, you can eradicate your defilements to even to the level of anagami. If not, you couple with wisdom and go all the way to the fuller liberation. So that is why, at the end of Metta Sutta, we say, Nahi jatu gabba seyang punaretiti. Will never come back to the mothers, never come back to born in the womb again, which is the sensual world, which means, Brahma world, and so that also the same idea is reconfirmed there. With loving kindness alone, we can go all the way to now returning stage. So, to conclude, and our karma that we have done can be mitigated. The best way to handle our karma is to practice loving kindness and together with other Brahma Viharas. And we can make our mind bigger and bigger and vast, expansive. The more expansive, more vast we make, the influence, the effects of the bad karma getting mitigated and minimized. And we can actually exhaust all the karma that we have done with this body and not to bring any of the bad karma to the next life by practicing loving kindness. So I will end the discussion here, my explanation here. Maybe we can have time for a few questions. Anything that you have any clarification you need from the text? Yes? Cool. Okay. That is page. So I have different. Yes. So that is after the saying that a woman or man cannot take this body with them when they go, and the mortals have mind as their core. It's like within the body we have a mental process, we have a psychological process, and that is a process that will continue as long as we attain enlightenment. So there actually Buddha used the term chitta there. The term chitta has been used there to make the general sense of the mental process. So that's the core. That's what make us who we are. Not necessarily the body, but the mental process, chitta. Yeah. Yeah, you said that this is the part that is carried on to next life. I would say yes, but with caution. When you say part, it gives you a sense of, like fixed thing. Yeah, this is the process that will continue to the next life. Because even right now, it is a process. So yes, that is the process that will continue to the next life. That's what I was careful to say, it's a process. Yeah, yes. Yeah, because Buddhism is not really a materialistic religion. It doesn't say that there's only bodies. Really admit the our mental, psychological process. But then, very different from many other philosophies and religion, it does not necessarily view what we call the mind, even though we use the noun, as one single fixed unit. It's continuously changing, moving, and that's why we can change even the karma too. Right? It's a constantly moving process, but it continues. Once? Because of what? I think so. This whole process is complicated. So you have all other aggregates too. Like we have habitual tendencies, you have sankhara, you have sanya, and you have consciousness, all these things. But actually, the arahant is actually developing panya, wisdom, more like finding a distilled part of this mental process and seeing through the rest of the thing, and then transcend the attachment to those things. Yeah. No. Yeah, the panya part of it. Yeah, wisdom part of it. Okay. Any other? Yes, brother?
The last part of the sentence, that for a wise bhikkhu here who does not penetrate to a further liberation.
Yes. There's one more step to go. Yeah. Panya, yes. Here it's called anya. The term used is as anya. That is the panya vimutti, yes.
Okay, brothers and sisters, if you have any question, please come forward so Bhante can hear and everyone can benefit. Okay, please come and use the mic. Please come forward.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Great. Yes. What you say first is correct. Yes. Easier the equanimity. Usually, you see in any list of the Buddhist virtues, the equanimity is the last. Even in 7 factors of enlightenment. That will be like after you develop this wholesomeness, these kind of qualities, and that will be the last result. Yeah, loving kindness and compassion, those are a little bit effective, more. I don't want to call it emotional, but more heart involved in that, more like purposeful, radiation, and that's how you start. And then as a result, upekka will be more closer to ceto vimutti. Like equipoise, equanimity will be the result of that. Yes. Yes, welcome.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, we still got time. Any more questions? Okay, just come forward. Yes,
Yeah. Yes. Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, you can actually you can start with one and develop that to some level, and even with one we can develop what we call Cheto Vimutti. Yeah, it just for some reason I think we all do metta, but it's entirely possible to do karuna and also mudita. Yeah, I think mudita will be more useful to those people today, because maybe I mean, people feel compassionate when somebody is suffering, but many have a really difficult time to rejoice when somebody is really doing okay and good, right? So that can benefit also, yeah. Yeah. Yes. But jhanic level, it is more stable, it's more deeper level. But this will be more like a beginning of that. Yeah. Actually, when you develop these other three qualities, you look into your own mind, and then as a result of that, because upekkha also has a meaning of looking closer, so you watch your own mind. As a result, you have the balance of the mind. Yes, yes, yeah. According to suttas, of course, there are other traditions which do not believe that jhana can lead to loving kindness can lead to jhanas. But there are enough suttas which really explains that from Brahma Viharas you can really easily go to jhanas. Yes.
Okay, brothers and sisters, if you have any questions, please come forward because we have people sitting outside also, so they can listen from the speakers. Okay.
Good evening, Bhante.
Yes.
Is there a sutta that explains equanimity?
One specific sutta?
Because
Right now it doesn't come to my mind, but definitely, yes. There are Brahma Vihara suttas, number of suttas where they describe the equanimity in different levels. Equanimity, there's a sutta actually which describe different versions of equanimity. Equanimity in terms of with the most gross level of equanimity is the equanimity in the face of loss and gain and fame and defame. Okay. And little deeper equanimity is like whenever you have any sensory impressions coming, like visual form, whatever, visual forms, sounds, and taste, whatever they come, you just remain equanimous to any of them, whether pleasant or unpleasant. And more deeper level of equanimity is what we experience in jhanas. So there's one sutta, but I don't remember the name. Yes.
Is it different from being indifferent about some?
Oh, that's a good question, actually.
I get that confused.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. Each Brahma Viharas has an opposite quality, and also what we call vanchanika, the near enemy. Looks like the same, but actually opposite. Okay? For example, karuna, the compassion, the very opposite of compassion is harmful. Hinsa, not ahimsa, hinsa, feeling of harming others. Okay, what we call not the ill will, harmfulness, whatever. And then the near enemy looks like the same, but really the opposite, different, is called pity. Pity, and that's not compassion. In the same way, upekkha, the opposite one is the agitation, and unbalanced nature. And its near enemy is indifference. Okay. So indifference is right opposite to upekkha. It's not really upekkha. So lack of care, that's indifference is near enemy of upekkha. Looks like the same, but not really exactly different. Yeah.
So if let's say we were to witness an unpleasant event, let's say an abuse of something, abuse of a living being, so the feeling of anger...
Then you have to practice karuna there. You have to practice karuna. Upekkha will help us actually, when you start helping others, And then if you don't, upekkha is actually to balance our own practice. Because when we start to help others, we really involve in that. We really want people to be free from suffering and problem to be solved. So we put our whole energy. But at the same time, we have to maintain upekkha, equanimity within us, because sometimes our efforts may not be successful. Sometimes people may not understand our efforts. If you don't have equanimity, you're quickly fed up with that. You quickly let go of that. So equanimity is actually to help us to remain compassionate, although our efforts may not be always successful.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like a teacher, I mean, you have to be compassionate at the same time equanimous too. If you're only compassionate, you really try to teach and you maybe do your best and you expect everyone to learn and pass, but some students may not learn. They will ask the same question 10 times. Okay, if you don't have equanimity, teacher get fed up and teacher will give up the teaching. But even so the teacher can even answer, like even the same question is asked the 10th time, teacher will be able to answer exactly as if it asked as the first time if you develop equanimity to balance it.
It will be like seeing things as they really are, is it?
So yeah, but not losing the compassion, wanting to help, but understanding that we are limited. We're not able to change everything.
Okay, got it. Thank you.